little crooked, sorry, but you get the idea. Hey everybody, nice to see you. It's Margaret with Sacramento Art Classes. Thank you for coming tonight. We are doing the 4th Friday freebie watercolor class, and we're doing watercolor hydrangeas tonight. If you have never been here before, you're in the right place if you're here for the free class. And I do one of these a month on the 4th Friday of the month. The format for class is that there is on the side of your screen, you should probably see a little running text stream or a chat stream, and you're welcome to ask a question in there. And I will try to answer it as I paint. I kind of keep one eye on that, and I'll try to answer your questions live. If I miss it, I'll go back through over the weekend and get your questions answered by text or by a message of some sort. So it's also fun. It's always fun for me if you will say, hello, it's Lena from Carmichael or Leslie from Placentia. Just let me know where you are. It's just kind of fun to see how far people come for class. The video that we have tonight is live, but then as soon as it ends, Facebook will post it as a recorded video, and I'll leave it up indefinitely so you can go back and look at that later or share it with a friend. And we are at 1 year of doing these free classes. So I'm not sure how many, but I've done definitely more than 12 because I was doing 2 a month for a while. So thank you for being here for a whole year of these. The next one is going to be on March 28th. I'm sorry, May 28th. And I'm thinking of doing elephants. And I'm thinking that if I do elephants, we'll probably do some kind of fundraiser where I'll do a contribution to some type of elephant conservancy or elephant help type of organization. So if you've donated to elephants before and you have one you like, let me know. And I'm not totally set on the elephants yet, so if you have any other requests, I always like to see what you guys might want to paint, and I will let you know what's up with that one. The only other thing I want to say to you is that I do have a website, sacramentoartclasses.com, and on the website you can get a newsletter that I send out once a month. You can look at my calendar and see the classes that I teach. So both these classes here, the free ones on Facebook, and I also teach monthly classes on Zoom. So I teach a Wednesday night watercolor, which meets every Wednesday for a month, and I teach a Thursday night acrylic. So those are all there on the website if you want to check that out, sacramentoartclasses.com. Boy, you guys are typing up a storm tonight. I can't even read it. It's going so fast, but I am going to scroll back through there in a little bit and read, but welcome. And let's switch this up. So I'll move the camera back down onto the table so that you can see the video, and we'll get started. So if you have to look away, do that, or maybe get yourself something to nibble on or a little snack or drink while I change that up. And sorry about the extreme close-up. Here we go. Did you find it yet? All right. Okay, let me move a couple of things around. By the way, if you've never been in here before with me, I filmed this with my phone, and so whenever I have to zoom in or zoom out, I have to stand on a little bitty chair next to me to get up high enough to do that. So I wish I had something that would let me just zoom in and out real quick, but I don't have such a thing. So I'm sorry about that. Here comes some lights. Okay. Also, one more thing if you're new, I'm on a little bit of a delay, so you're going to see things before I do. So sometimes I accidentally get off camera like this, but I won't see it for a second or two. So if that happens, I'll just try to keep my eye up on the screen and take care of that for you. Okay, let's start off with our sketch. You will see me doing this with a Sharpie, but I would like you to do it with a pencil because I'm doing it with a Sharpie so it's easier for you to see. And I want to zoom in a little bit too. So don't use a Sharpie. You need to be able to erase. Here comes the zoom, 1 second. There we go. How is everybody tonight? Olivia from Fair Oaks and Cindy from Houston, Texas. How is it there in Texas? Good? All right, you see that I have a very lightly sketched pencil sketch here. I do that ahead of time just for sake of time. And I'm going to go over all these lines with the Sharpie so that you'll be able to see them better. So if you remember from the sample, we have 3 large blossoms and then we have some leaves around the lower edge. And you're always welcome to have more blossoms or fewer, or your own number of leaves. It's up to you, whatever you'd like to do. So I'll try to leave that close. Maybe you can see some of it in there. And let's get started. We're going to start with this large flower that's right here in the bottom. And what I want you to do is think about drawing a circle, but let's make the edges a little bit wiggly, kind of like this. Imagine that it is the blossom, and it's not a perfect circle, so it's not like a softball or an orange. You got to give it a little wiggle. So that's your step 1 there. And this sketch is going to be super easy. That's why I didn't give it to you ahead of time, because I wanted to just do it with you, and it's not going to be difficult. Give you a second to do that. And then let's lay in another one that's kind of behind the first one. So you can make it about the same size. I'll probably start here at about maybe 11 o'clock on this first flower, and do another circle, a little bit kind of wiggly. If it's a slightly different size than the other one, that's okay. Because if you look at hydrangeas, they're not all perfect. Hi, Susan from Roseville. And finally, the one in the background is a little bit bigger, and when we have flowers growing on a bush, they're not all looking directly at you, so the face of the flower is not always directly at you like that. Sometimes they're up or to the side. So the large one that we're going to add on the top is this guy up here, and it's really only going to be about half of it showing, and I'm going to make that a little bigger than the other guys. It's kind of nice. Hi, Jean Lori. It's kind of nice because even though I have a shy studio guest, it's good for me because I can see how long it takes him or how short it takes him to draw things, and then I can time with I'm guessing like how fast you guys are doing things too, so it's helpful to me. All right, here we go. Now let's add some leaves. Hydrangea leaves have little what do you call them, like a serrated edge on a knife on them. But I don't want you to worry about drawing that right now. You can if you want to. We're just going to do some basic leaf shapes. You'll see here's those little edges here and here. So we'll just do some basic leaf shapes, and then you can create that with your paint later. So our first leaf, let's just put it, let's do a couple right up here. I'm going to do one kind of here. Remember, maybe they're all going to be slightly different size. And I'll do a second one that is a little bit, it's kind of behind it. It's okay if your leaves go off the edge of the paper too. If you feel like you're trying to cram everything in on the paper, don't worry about it. Let that leaf go off the edge. Hi Marilee, how are you in Arkansas? And Reno, Laura from Reno. I'm scrolling back, giving you guys a chance to draw and see if I missed any questions. Okay, I think we probably have these first 2 leaves okay. And so I'm going to put in 3 more that sort of ring around the bottom here. I'll let one of these go off the page just so you can see what I mean. So here's the first one. I'm keeping that guy on the page. It's rainy in Arkansas, Marilee says. Isn't there some type of song about rainy in Arkansas? Here comes the next one. I'm going to take that off the edge of the page. So if I were to continue, I'd draw it on the brown paper. So I'll do that for you just so you can see it. It would continue down here on my brown table paper and then comes back up. So I don't want you to draw on your table, but I'm giving you the idea of what that would be like. And by the way, if you've just joined, You're seeing me doing this with Sharpie so you can see it easily, but you should be doing it hopefully in pencil, so you can make corrections or erase if you need to. Welcome, Anne from Columbia, Missouri. And one last leaf over here. I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to let this guy cross kind of over onto two flowers. So what I mean is it's actually kind of behind two flowers. You can see some portion of it is behind this guy, and the rest of it is down there. And that's almost it for your drawing. You know from looking at this and from looking at real hydrangeas that they're made up of a lot of little petals, little blossoms, individual blossoms that make the one big blossom ball. And each one of these little bitty guys has 4 petals. But we don't care about that. We don't need to make it look like everything is spelled out with 4 petals. So I'm going to let you draw just to kind of give you an anchor. One little small blossom on each one of these. It's just sometimes it helps people to have one thing to go by. So they kind of go like this. It's almost like a slice of pizza or a triangle maybe, and they sort of meet in the middle, or a clover maybe. So pick your spot wherever you want to put one. I did that one a little bit big, but by the time we paint it, it'll kind of blend in and it won't matter too much. That's probably a little bit bigger than I wanted, but that's why you're using pencil, in case you want to change it up. And then I'm going to do one here. I'll put it right over here by the edge. Let's go like this. And I'll do the last one up here and then give you time to catch up on that. So I'm just kind of jamming through this real quick just to get something going. And that is the extent of your sketch for tonight. If you were to draw out every single one of these blossoms, it would take you forever, forever. Okay. Looks like we might need another minute here. If any of you feel like you are ready, maybe you can give me a little thumbs up on the chat so that I know you're ready, and I'll watch for that. And I'm going to just look through and see if there was any questions at the beginning. Thanks everybody for telling me where you're from. Santa Cruz. I'm seeing some good thumbs up coming there. So, is it Ponte? Did I say it right? This is your first time joining class. Welcome. Welcome to class. I hope I said it right. Okay, let me see. Maybe another minute here. Oh, I got a lot of thumbs up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on. I'm going to put this aside for now. And I pre-drew, this is my painting paper, so you're now looking at my pencil sketch, so you don't see it as well as you did with the one with the Sharpie. But, and I'm using Arches 140-pound cold pressed paper. It's 9 by 12. Sometimes people ask me. Jillian, welcome to your first time too. So that's what my paper is. And the brushes that I'm going to be using tonight are... I might be using a 1-inch flat, but more likely I'll be using a 1/2-inch flat, and you don't have to use these same brushes. You can use whatever you need, but I'm going to choose these for now. I will probably also use a number 12 round brush, and then sometimes I like a little more detail, so I have a number 6 round and also a detail brush. You certainly don't need all of these, but I just like to let you know what I'm going to be using. And then let's talk about paints real quick, and we'll get started on our painting. And this one, by the way, is a pretty easy one, I think. So I think we will finish on time. I'm always striving to finish on time, but it doesn't always happen. Okay, so the paints that I'm using tonight are... this is one of my travel sets, and this is a Daniel Smith paint set. All the paints I'm using tonight are Daniel Smith. There are lots of good brands, but I'm enjoying learning about this one. So I'm going to use a magenta color, and it's called quinacridone magenta, which is this right here. I'll be using a purple, and this purple happens to be called Imperial Purple. You might have Windsor Violet. The studio guest tonight has Windsor Violet over there in his palette, or any kind of purple would be great. The blue is here, and it's Phthalo Blue, which is a kind of a nice, brighter, deeper blue. I don't know if it can be bright and deep, I'm not sure, but it's a nice blue. And then I have a couple greens. Some people might have Hooker's green, you might have Jenkins green, you might have all different kinds of green. This one is Serpentine green, and this is Phthalo green. So that's all of the colors that I'm using. You may also see me pull from this palette. It's the same stuff. It's just kind of, you know, a smaller travel set. So I'm going to try and let you get zoomed. I'm going to zoom in as much as I can, but I will also bring back this for you to look at occasionally because it's helpful for you probably to see the sample as much as we can on this. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I don't see any questions right now, so I'm going to take up my 1/2 inch flat brush. It's also always good to have a towel or paper towel or a rag to blot, so I keep that over to the side here. You want to go ahead and get your brush wet to start out with, and you can pick any one of these blossoms that you'd like to start with, and you want to get it, please, wet ahead of time. So you're just painting clear water on the whole entire blossom. Just keep it inside of one. You can go right over that little bitty tiny blossom section that I had you paint at the start there. So you're pre-wetting this, and what this is going to do is it's going to give us a base color. We'll put a base color in here, and then later we'll go back and we'll spell out some of the blossoms. Sometimes when I'm painting and talking at the same time, it doesn't make sense. So if that didn't make sense, I'll say it again, and you'll actually see me doing it, so you will hopefully understand. All right, and then when you're ready, let's get into that magenta. And again, mine is quinacridone magenta. When you're mixing watercolors or painting with watercolors, it's nice to maybe spray or wet the colors a little bit ahead of time. And I'm putting them over here on the side because I need a little mixing space. You don't have to do that, but I like to do that just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. When you're mixing watercolor paints, you can dilute them with water to the consistency of tea or coffee, or if they're a little bit thicker, they're more like milk. So we want to keep everything kind of like coffee tea today, not milk and not whipping cream. And let's go ahead and paint this whole blossom, but I need you to do it in a certain way. If you don't mind, could you pretend like you're making little blossoms like that. Remember, they have 4 petals, and we're just going to do simple 4-petal patterns here and there all over this. If you have gaps of white in there, let it be. Don't worry about it. Just let there be white happening. And continue this whole large blossom. And you can go over the edge of your, you can go outside of it if you want, outside of the pencil line. That's okay, because then you'll actually hide some of your pencil marks that way too. You can see that I'm not really being very careful about where and how I'm placing these. I'm just kind of filling up the space. If you're using a round brush, don't worry, that's just as good as a flat brush. That's just, I happen to have the flat brush here, so I thought I would use this one tonight. In watercolor, we have to sometimes go quickly because it'll dry out on us, and we will have more success if we still have the background is still wet. It's always nice to paint on the paper that's a little damp or a little bit wet. Okay, so I'm going to be good. I missed a spot here. If you need to do a little bit here and there to cover up, that's okay. Now you can see if you were to look up at mine that some of the water is puddling and pooling up here at the top. If that happens to you, you can just tip your paper a little bit and let that water sort of swim down if it bugs you, but it's okay to leave it there too. You don't want to tip for too long because you don't want to get a drip that goes outside of that blossom. And while you're doing that, let me say that it might be nice for you. I'm sorry, I should have said this at the beginning. You don't have to have one, but if you have a hairdryer or I have a heat gun, it might be nice for you to use that. Maybe you can ask somebody to grab it for you or run and go get that, just so that we can dry things in between. And things, it'll go faster. We won't have to wait for stuff to dry. And one more thing too is a little tip. You don't have to do this, but I want to show it to you in case you choose to. If you want to have, if you feel like your paint is a little darker than you want, you can take a Kleenex and you can just do a little tiny bit of blotting, just like that, and lift up some color. So that's another thing that you can always do with watercolor if you want. So I'm just sort of showing you some of the possibilities. And I blotted a decent amount out of the top so I can have it be a little bit lighter up there on the top. Okay, I saw some thumbs up earlier. Are we ready for another blossom? If you're ready, you can give me a smiley face or a thumbs up. I see somebody asked if the video will be a recording, and yes, it will. As soon as it's done, as soon as the live part is done tonight, Facebook will pop it up there as a recording, and I'll leave it up there indefinitely. So you will be able to access it or share with friends, or let other people know that they exist. There's a whole year worth of paintings up there. Okay, so let's go on. Here again is the main sample. So the colors that I used on this one are slightly different than the colors I'm using tonight, and your colors will be different than mine. So I like you to see kind of a variety so you know that what can happen with different colors. So I'm going to do this guy on the top next. And for that one, I am going to give myself the clear water again. So we're painting the whole thing clear. Now, if you let your clear water touch this pink blossom you just painted, they're going to bleed and run together. So it is okay to leave a little gap of white unpainted paper, dry paper that you're not pre-wetting, and then things won't blend together. Makes sense? Okay, on this one I want to leave it a little bit lighter up at the top, so I'm going to put less up there. And I'm going to actually use two colors on this one from the start. So up at the top, I think I will take some of that same pink, but I'm going to water it down way more. So now when I come in and do these four little petals, you can see that it's way lighter than what I initially put on, because my initial one was this dark right here. Okay. So go ahead and do that about halfway down, and then we're going to change colors. You're going to look for the purple will come at the bottom, the Winsor Violet. You hear me talking to the studio guest, so I'm not telling you all that you have to use Winsor Violet, but if you want to, that would be a great one. I'm still with the quinacridone magenta here. And then when I get about halfway down, I'm going to switch to a purple. So if you have Winsor Violet, that would be a good one. I have Imperial Purple, which is a Daniel Smith color, and it looks like this. So it's a very deep purple. It's pretty dark, so I'm going to probably dilute it with a lot of water so that it's not super dark at the beginning. When you paint with watercolors, you can do multiple layers. Sometimes when people are brand new, they don't know that you don't have to get it all done with one pass. You can do multiple layers and build colors and build kind of a nice transparent look where you can see colors through each other. So here's this Imperial Purple. It's pretty dark, So if I do it like this and it's darker than what I want, here's a fix. Here's a way to fix it. Rinse out your brush, and just with water on your brush, you can kind of blot that and it will lighten up. So there's always a way to change things if you don't like what you have, or you can use your Kleenex to blot. So remember when I had you draw those practice little flower buds so that you could get the idea of the 4? You've painted over those now, and you may not be able to see them just yet, but we're going to bring them back a little bit with another layer of paint later, so you'll kind of spell them out again. So there is just the bottom half. I'm keeping it pretty loose. It's pretty wet, and it'll flow around. For as long as there's water on the paper here, it will flow around and do its own thing. And since I want it to flow and do its own thing, I'm also going to do a 3rd color on this. I'm throwing a lot at you guys tonight. Am I going too fast? Are we okay? I see a thumbs up for okay. I'm going to pause after this flower so you can catch up. Excuse me. I dipped into Phthalo Blue. Peacock blue is a beautiful blue to use too if you have that and you want to try it. But while this flower here is still wet, I'm going to put a few little bits of this blue in, because you know how sometimes hydrangeas, especially some of them, if you feed them the certain, I think it's acidic fertilizer, they get more blue. So I want to put some blue down here, and I'm putting it at the bottom also because I want there to be a shadow, more of a shadow down here on the bottom, just in a few spots. So that's enough for that. Okay. And now it's time for you to catch up. So I'm not going to do any painting just yet. I'm going to let you do that. And also, if you need to take a peek at this one, I'll hold this one up here too. I'll hold up that sample again back and forth, but I'll let you look at this one for a bit and let you get caught up. I see a couple people ask me to slow down a little bit, so thank you for letting me know.
How did you get it to spread out like this off your brush? Did you stroke it or just let it?
I had the water does the thing. So if it's wet ahead of time, where you just paint water on first and then you add the paint on top of it, then it'll bloom and kind of flow around and spread that way. If the paper's already dry or it's getting more towards damp and it's not really wet, it tends to stick in one place and doesn't flow around as much as you might want it to. Hi Wynn, how are you? You're gonna paint tomorrow? That's cool. What is everybody having for their snack tonight? I'm having a fabulous snack of water. Woohoo! While you're catching up, I'm gonna use my heat gun here real quick. You're gonna hear just a little bit of noise, and I want to get this dried out. So if you're ahead of the game and you want to go grab a hairdryer, you can use yours to dry out too, and I'll be back with you in just a second. You want to use it? $78 people. Okay, I saw some interesting snacks and interesting drinks, people. All right, if I see some thumbs up, I'll know we're okay to go on, and if not, then I'll wait a bit and we'll do the third blossom in a second. So here's another look back at the sample. 2, 3. All right, good. I'm seeing Jillian needs another minute here. Also, by the way, in case everybody didn't hear, this is recorded. You can access it later. So if somehow you feel you want to maybe you want to repaint it, or you're not quite ready and you lose a portion of what I'm talking about, you can go back and watch it later on too. So one thing you want to look at before we start doing the third one is, these are outside in a garden, I'm thinking, or maybe it's in a vase, it doesn't matter, but we notice that on the tops of all of them, they're a little bit lighter than the bottom. So we're trying to give a little bit, I was trying to give a little bit of shading underneath here. Here I had it lighter at the top, and where I blotted it, and it's a little darker. If you didn't do this, that's fine, because we can still build that in later. But as we add the third one, let's do where we have a little bit less paint up here and a little more down on the bottom, so that we get the effect of having some highlights on these, okay? All right, so your steps for this one are the same as the first two. Please, just with a clear water brush, pre-paint. And as long as these previous two that you've done are dry, you can let your water go all the way up to them. If it's a little damp, you might see a little bit of bleeding of colors, but and if it's super wet, try to stay away from it. Just leave a little gap, because we can go back in later and paint in that gap and not worry about the colors bleeding. It might be a little frustrating for you if they bleed. So if it's wet, give yourself a little gap that remains dry and unpainted. For whatever reason, my water here is drying really fast on my paper, so I've had to add a little extra. What I'm looking for is an even shine on this. If you don't have enough shine on it, you may have to just add a little bit more water. We don't want a lake or anything, like a giant puddle, but just an even shine on there. And I'm going to start down here at the bottom with some darker colors. So I'm going to be using some blue and purple in there. And as it comes up to the top, I'm going to fade to a really light pink. So here's a sample again, so you can kind of get the feel for that. All right. Again, I have Imperial Purple. You might have Windsor Violet. Oops, sorry, I got a little splash there. So we're going to do those that four blossom, 4 little petal thing here a couple times. You can see that this is a very imprecise way of painting, especially when it's wet. Things swim around and blend and mix together, and we're using that to our advantage in this case. Sometimes people can get frustrated, but as long as you know that you're trying to let things mix and let the paint do things on its own, you'll be ahead of the game. So there's my purple, and now I just added a little blue onto my brush, and mine is Phthalo Blue. So I'm just going to put a few little bits of blue here and there. Whoops. And stop at that, so it's just the lower part. Thank you for coming tonight. While you're catching up, I want to say to you that the next class is going to be on May 28th, and I was talking earlier about, I think I want to do an elephant, And I would like to give a portion of the tips to an elephant rescue or elephant conservancy group. So if anybody knows a good one, and you want to put that in the chat to let me know, I will research that and then maybe do figure out how to give them a portion of any proceeds from the class. So that's on May 28th. And also, if you forget about what the date is, you can go on my website, sacramentoartclasses.com, and you can look at all of the classes I teach both here, and then I do classes on Zoom. So anything you need is a good one. Oh, thank you, Kim. I see paws in San Andreas, so I'll check that out. They have elephants in San Andreas? Maybe it's is it like an elephant sanctuary? Okay, so hopefully the top half of your flower is still damp. If it feels like it's getting too dry, you can put some clear water on it again ahead of time. It's always best to be painting on a wet surface here. So I'm just going to re-wet mine because I was yakking for a minute and mine got a little dry. And then I'm going to put pink up there. I'm really diluting the pink with water. I want it to be pretty pale for now. If you are making these 4 blossom little flowers and they bleed all together, that's okay. They're still gonna give us the effect of having a, you know, a separated flower. I don't know how to say it the right way, but a flower with made of lots of different littler flowers. If you need to, remember you can leave that white border between the blossoms. If things are too wet and you don't want it to bleed into the neighboring blossom, you can leave a border. And there we go, right there. What I have is a lot of water right here, and things are swimming around in a way that I don't like it. So if that happens to you, remember, Kleenex is your best friend on this. I like Kleenex better than paper towels because a lot of times paper towels have, what do you call it, pattern on it. And when you blot with a pattern, sometimes it leaves a pattern on your paint. So really a lot of my paint is running together and I don't like it at all. So I'm just going to pick it up again. And that will actually help me too to have more of a highlight on the top. And while you're doing that, I'm going to use my dryer again. So if you need to dry, go ahead. Here's this guy again, if you need to see that. Pause progressive. Okay, thank you for that information about the elephant place. I'll check that out. That seems cool. And I promise I'll make the elephant as easy as possible because I know that a lot of you are doing this for the first time, or maybe you're new painters, so it's good to have I try to have things that are accessible to beginners. And sometimes kids are here. I haven't seen any kids from school yet, but sometimes I'm by day I'm a school teacher for kindergarten through 8th grade, and sometimes some of the parents and some of the kids come to class. So I'm not sure, I don't remember seeing anybody yet, but sometimes that happens. And let me know please with thumbs up whenever you're ready, and we'll go on to the next part. Jillian Bruno, you're a kid. Okay, Jillian, good job. Way to be here. Way to hang in there. Hi, Mrs. Hartman. and Hartman family? All right, I'm starting to see a few thumbs up. I'll give you another little bit just in case. If you're waiting, this would be a good time for you to maybe get some of your green paint ready to go. So I'll show you what that looks like on mine. Whoops, sorry, I got a little drip happening here. Okay, I'm going to move that out of the way for a second. It might be nice for you to have a variety of different greens. So if your paint set has more than one green, it would be good to maybe get some of them primed and ready to go. So I have several greens here. This one is called, what is this called? Viridian. Looks like this. So when I say get them ready, I just mean kind of juice them up, get some water in there. If you need space to have them to the side on your palette, you can do that. That whole middle section is for you to use. If you want to be mixing in there or having space, you can do that. I have the quietest studio guest in here tonight. He's just quietly painting. You can talk. Hey, look, there he is. He did a picture of an elephant too. Okay, so I have some Viridian. This right here is not what I wanted. I'm going to use a color called Appetite Green. It is a yellow-green color. Looks like this. So you might have something called, you might have Hooker's Green, you might have a yellow-green. If you have a real light phthalo yellow-green, that's a nice kind of yellowy green. I don't have that on this palette, so what I can do is get some yellow and put it over here, just so I have it at the ready if I want to have some yellow to mix in with one of these greens. And let me get a little bit more of this guy. And remember, if you have a question at all, you can pop it into those comments and I'll try to answer it while we're all live here together. So if you need to know again what color I'm using or something like that, or what brush I'm using, then you can do that. All right, I'm going to stay with that same flat brush, but again, you're welcome to use a round brush. If you do decide to use a round brush, you may want to use a smaller one, like this is a number 6, because we're going to do leaves next. And I like to use the flat brush for leaves because it lets me carve out the shape of those serrated or edgy pieces on the leaves. It's a little bit easier for me to do it with a brush like this than it is with a flat brush. So let's pick a good one. I'll do this guy up here at the top. The easiest way to go is follow inside of your pencil lines with just clear water again, staying away from your blossom. If your blossom is still wet, if your blossom's dry, you can go right up to the edge there and just first put the clear water on, and then when you've wet most of the leaf or all of the leaf, you can go back in with your brush. I'm going to do this with paint instead. I'm gonna show it to you with paint because it'll be easier for you to see. If I do it with clear water, you won't be able to see it. So we've pre-wet the leaf. It's just no fanciness, just wet. And now I'm going to take this kind of yellowy green and watch what happens. Since this leaf is all wet, I can plop some green on there, and then I can tip my paper around like this carefully. And the water is only going to go, the paint is only going to go where there was already water. If I tap this or bang it on the table, it will drip outside of there. But this is called creating a water dam. So you are creating that area that is wet, and then when you add the wet paint into it, the paint only flows where the water already is. So you can see I had to do I had to lay in a little bit of paint here because I didn't get the water all the way up to the blossom. Sorry, I'm sorry, my hand wasn't in the way on that one. But that's just a little trick. If you don't like doing it that way, you don't have to. I'm just kind of showing you something new, maybe new. And now, once I have that leaf identified, I can go in with this flat brush and make some of those kind of serrated edges. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what I'm calling it. So let's see what that looks like. We're going to go, let me think about this for a minute. I'm going to start here and I'm going to just kind of carve. Oops, I don't like that color. I'm going to carve them in kind of like this. I'll do this again zoomed in so you can see it better. But all I'm doing is just having my brush go at an angle that makes this jagged edge. So let me stand up on my chair here and zoom in so that you can see the next one that I do a little bit more closely. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'll do the top side of that leaf the same way so you can see it. Get some paint on here. And here we go. Make sure my hand isn't in the way before I start painting. Okay. So all I'm doing is touching the brush onto the paper, and then I'm moving it down the paper until I kind of have this little edge like that. Sometimes you have to do a little correction, or you have to add a little paint. Maybe your leaf didn't go far enough up to the plant, to the blossom. Maybe you have to fill in a little bit. Sometimes you might say, I'd like to have a second different kind of green in there. So at any time while this is still wet, you can take a second green. I have a different green, and I'm just going to touch it on here and just go like that and let it be. It's pretty subtle, but I might tip the paper a little bit, and now I have a leaf with kind of two different shades of green. I'll show you the sample in a second. Like, for example, down in here there's some darker green and some lighter green. This one's a little bit lighter up here, and then it's dark down at the bottom. Sorry, I have to move that so you can see it better. This one right here is lighter up at the top and then darker underneath. So if while it's still wet, you can take a second color of paint and drop it in. Thank you, Jillian. And I'm just tipping my paper a little bit while you're getting caught up on that leaf. And I'm just doing that. I'm kind of tipping it and rocking it so that the paint flows around. I like to do it this way rather than use my brush to really get picky with it, because it gets to look a little bit overworked sometimes. So I just like to use the tipping method instead and then let it do its thing. So what we're going to do is, at your own pace, whenever you're ready, we're going to do all of the rest of the leaves here. So we have 3 more to go. All the time that I'm doing the leaves, I'm going to be watching this first one here. I guess I have 5 leaves to get all together. I'm watching this one because I have a puddle forming here. When watercolor paper gets wet, it buckles and ripples, and so it creates these valleys, and water collects in those valleys. You might like the way that looks. It's kind of in a good location because it's making it look like it's dark on that lower side of the leaf. If you don't like where it is, just babysit your paper, and every once in a while tip it carefully, making sure it doesn't drip outside of the border, and let it move around a little bit. Okay, so I am going to keep us zoomed in like this, and I'm going to turn my paper so that we stay on camera, but I can access the leaves a little bit more easily so my hand won't be in the way of you guys. I'm going to do this little baby guy here next. And if you remember, I always just put on water first. Oops, my paintbrush has some other color on it there. And then after I put on the water, I get my paint and drop that in. I'll probably rock it again. This one has a lot of water, so I have to be careful. I don't want to rock it too much because I don't want to have it drip outside of that area that it's in. If you don't like the flat brush, you can always switch. Right now I'm using this round brush just to show you that you can do the same thing if you only have a round brush and you don't have a flat. I'm going to do that serrated edge on here so that you can see that you can still do it with whatever kind of brush that you have. And by the way, I want to make a little bit more of a point on this one, so I'm going to extend this one out farther. Sometimes I do that. I make a change halfway through or part way through and I got to go back and make an adjustment. So here we go. With a round brush, you can still get kind of these edges. They're not always quite as crisp. And since we're only doing a 90-minute class, I have to work a little quickly. If I were just painting this on my own, I might take a lot longer to do this. There we go. And if you want to, you can add in a second green. What do I have over here? I have some other greens on my other palette. Maybe I want to use one of those. We're a little bit more than halfway through the class and we are doing well. I think we're going to, I always aim to finish on time, and for those of you who have painted with me all this time for the past year, hardly any of the classes were finished on time, but I think we'll be okay on this one. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to turn my paper again and just continue going around with all these leaves. And after I'm finished with all the leaves, I'm going to dry it with my heat gun. So if you, for sake of time, sometimes I have to go on so that we finish in the amount of time. So remember, if you feel rushed, here's a little thing you can do. You already know how to paint a leaf because we did it once or maybe twice. Maybe you've done two. So if we're ready to go on, if I'm going to go on to the next step after leaves and you're still painting leaves, you can come back later and paint leaves. You don't have to have them all done right away. So I like to at least give you the information you need to paint it on your own 1 or 2 times, and then if you need to, you can use the rest of the time to paint other things and then come back to this stuff. Does that make sense? I started to ramble a little bit. Kind of tired. Long day. I'm going to turn it back the right side up for you on this one so that it doesn't get confusing. Let's see here, move some stuff around. And I want you to be able to see that bottom leaf. There we go. I'm doing that because I want you to see where I'm putting in that secondary green color. I'm doing it on the lower portions of the leaf. So I'm leaving the top part of the leaf kind of more yellow green. Oops, a little bit more yellow green. I know I got off camera for a second. Hold on, I'm waiting for the delay here. There we go. I'm leaving the top portions of the leaves a little bit more yellow green and then dropping in the darker color towards the bottom to create a feeling of shadow. So back down to this guy here. Because there is this great big blossom overlapping that leaf, chances are that blossom would cast a shadow on the leaf. So with a darker green, I'm going to lay in a shadow right here next to the blossom. So it looks like we have shadow there. And I'm going to tip. And then I'm going to be okay with it for now, just like that. I'll go to this guy. So just like all the other ones, pre-wet it. Staying away from the flowers if they're still wet because I don't want it to bleed in there into those guys. How you doing? I do have a lot more paint on this one. Oops, I forgot to do the little edges here. Hold on, let me go back to this guy. As long as, if you forget something, as long as the area that you need to go back into is still wet, you can make corrections. I don't really like what I did on that, but... And let's go on this side. Tell you, no matter how much room you have in your house or on your desk or on your table, you always, anyway, it seems like we always use up whatever we have. Hold on. Whatever space we have. And fix this guy too. Am I making you dizzy moving the painting around so much? Sorry. And one last guy over here. Don't worry, when I finish this one, I will stop to dry them so you'll have time to get caught up a little bit. And our next step that we'll do after this is to go back into the blossoms again. Good thing I have a monitor. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't know what was going on and I'd be off screen all the time. Let's go like this. This way. Okay, I'm going to enlarge the whole thing, so I'm going to zoom out for a minute so you can kind of get a view of what everything is happening here. Delay. Is yours showing it yet? There we go. Okay, keep going with your leaves. I'm going to dry. Okay. Okay. Natalie, I see your question. You just joined. Welcome to class. This will be a video. A recorded video. So after the live class is done, a few minutes after, Facebook will post it as a recorded video and it'll stay up on my site indefinitely. So everything I've already done for the last year is still up and you can watch any of them whenever you like. I see I have a spot here. I must have dripped. You can use this if you need to. Okay, let me know with some thumbs up when you are ready to go on. I'll tell you that on mine, this one right here is my favorite leaf because I used a lot more paint on that one, so it was nice and dark. And I love that color. That color is called Green Apatite, which is a Daniel Smith color. And I like Daniel Smith paints a lot because they granulate on the page. So if you can see on this one, the leaf that I said I liked, you can see it's kind of grainy and the paint separates, and it's such a neat effect. I really like that a lot. So that's one of the things that a lot of the Daniel Smith colors will do, is granulate like that. But there's tons of other good brands of paint. So use whatever you have, but that's just one of my favorites. While I'm waiting for your thumbs up, let me talk to you about what we're going to do next. We'll go back into those flowers and we'll try to give them a little bit more detail. So right now what we have is very kind of loose and cotton candy type of flowers, but when we go back in this next time, we're going to start spelling out some of the blossoms a little bit, and especially down here on the lower portions, you can see I left the tops a little bit simpler, but on the lower portions you can see that I'm having the individual blossoms show. All right, I got one thumbs up. Anybody else? It's okay if you're still going. We can wait. We have about 25 more minutes left, so we will be finishing. Cross our fingers, but I think we're going to be finishing on time on this guy. All right, I see some thumbs up coming. Okay, so for the next part, let me think about this. I might switch brushes here. I'm going to go to my number 6 round, which is about this big. So if it helps you to know how big that is, it's kind of like, I don't know, smaller than my fingernails, but bigger than a fingernail brush. So that's a number 6. A 6 or an 8 would be good. I wouldn't use something as big as a 12 because it's just a little bit too big to go. And what you want to do on this is similar to what we did the first time where we're wetting things, but I need you to have, hopefully you have, can you have a Kleenex or a paper towel handy? Because I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of blotting on this one. So that'll be helpful if you have that handy. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's pick one. We'll do this pink guy first. With just clear water again, I'm going to ask you to paint only the bottom portion and not just straight across, because this is a rounded, like a globe, it's a rounded object. So what I want you to do is paint a rounded section down here, give it a curve with your clear water so that it'll give you more of a feeling of being a sphere or a globe or a round shape. If you're painting the fence, you can go straight up and down, or if you're painting a wall, maybe you can go sideways, but anything rounded, you want to give it a rounded curve. So with my brush, studio guest, do you want me to zoom in a little bit? Will that be helpful?
I can see.
You can see? Okay, so we're going to go like this, giving it a little bit of rounded shape on that lower half. You might see your paint move a little bit because when you re-wet watercolors, it moves a little bit. And once you do that, now I'm going to ask you to do a gentle blot. So that's like this. Here's my Kleenex, and I'm just going to do a little pat on there. Do you need another one? Here you go. I don't want to pull all the water out. I just want to kind of soften the water a little bit. And now it's a little bit, it's not tricky, but you're going to be doing a little detail work. So here's the close-up on this one while I get some paints on my brush. I'm going to be working with blue and purple right now. So if you don't have blue and purple ready to go, you may need to get a little bit of extra going. And you're doing almost like a little bit of a calligraphy, or think of it as cursive writing sort of on that damp area. So it looks like this. This is why I'm choosing a slightly smaller brush in the area that I dampened. Remember that flower I let you draw at the beginning? You're going to kind of do it with your brush a little bit. I want you to try and go quickly and loosely so that you're not really caring too much about how perfect they are. But give yourself, with either your blue or your purple, some feeling of some blossoms down here. I was with purple first, but now maybe I'll get some blue on my brush. The reason that you dampened it first is because it'll soften the edges of this. It's not like we're just taking a pen or something and drawing these blossoms on. We're using a brush on a damp surface, and as we do that, it blurs a little bit. So it doesn't look like too much yet, but it will. So I'll stop there while you do that. If your paint comes out too dark, you can dilute it with water in your palette ahead of time. So I diluted it a little bit. And by the way, watercolor paint dries lighter. So as it dries, it becomes lighter than what you initially put down. So this leaf that's already dry was probably way darker before. I think maybe I'll do just a couple others up here. Just a few little mark making, not spelling it out for everybody, but just a little suggestion. Once you do that, it's your choice of purple or blue. I'm going to do purple. I have a very watery brush, and I'm really going to dilute my purple, really thin it down so it's like really weak tea. And with that brush, I'm not up on the point, but I have the brush a little bit more flat. I'm just going to do a couple kind of blobby shapes in here, up a little bit higher up. That's going to give the feeling of some blossoms happening with different colors to them. So just some little blobby wipes, and I didn't do anything in this top section. I left that one alone. It's kind of impressionistic. It gives us the feeling that there are some other shapes up there. And the next thing that I'm not going to do it yet, but the next thing I'm going to make you do, you might cringe a little bit. You'll think, what if I wreck it? So if it makes you nervous, don't do it. But I want to show it to you so that you know about it. And then I'll show first, and you can decide whether you want to try it or not. Maybe you don't try it on this one. Maybe you try it on one of the other blossoms. All right, do we feel ready? Okay, it looks like this. With a damp brush or a wet brush, no paint on it, just water. This stuff that you just did down here, I'm just going to have you just let your wet brush kind of go on top of that and soften that even more. So you're trying to blur those blossoms a little bit. You won't get to blur them a lot because the paint has started to dry, but I'm just trying to soften some of the lines that we made, and that's it. I'm going to stop on that. That's the end of that flower ball. If you used a whole ton of paint on here, it might not feel right to do it on that one, and you can always just skip this guy and try it on the next one. And I'm going to repeat that whole process that I just did on both of these, so you'll get to see it again if you missed it the first time. And give it a shot on the second one. So since I have some blue down on this guy, I think I'll use blue on this. So remember what I did first was I pre-wet it, giving it a rounded shape, not just straight across, but kind of like a, I don't know, maybe like a smiley face or a crescent moon sideways. So I put that, and then I'm going to get some of my blue paint. Try not to have it too thick or too dark. Let it be a little bit diluted. Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot. Before you do that, take your Kleenex and give it a gentle blot. So you wet it and then you blot it. I wet this first, then I blotted it, and now with my paint on here, I'm going to come in and do those little blossom designs again. And this one on mine is a little bit more damp than it was on the first one, so they're bleeding together, and they're a little bit softer focus than the pink blossom. Sorry, my hair is getting in the video a little bit. Maybe I'll do a couple guys up there, like that. And a guy up there. And now if you remember what I did on the first one, I took a very little bit of really thinned out, really diluted blue paint, and actually I used purple over here, but with the brush sideways, I just kind of pressed some shapes into that, leaving the top to stay pink because we're trying to get that to be a highlight up there. So I left it pink, and I'll let this sit for a minute, and then I'm going to go back over this bottom stuff. Not yet because it's too wet. If it's really wet and you go over it, you're going to lose all those little shapes down there. So I'm going to let it dry for a minute. Sometimes I use my finger too. Like if I see something I don't like, you can move it with your finger too. We're coming into the home stretch. We're going to finish. It's going to be good. Here's the other one in case you need to see it again. And in a minute I'll do the third one, but I'm just kind of giving you some time to get caught up on things and not feel crazy rushed. Check this guy down here, and if it's still pretty wet, we don't want to do this, but if it's not really very shiny anymore, remember you can take that damp brush and just press a little bit here and there and soften up those lines to just still suggest blossoms, but we don't want them to be really spelled out. It's kind of impressionistic painting where things are loose and suggestive but not spelled out. And Lynn, if you wouldn't mind letting me know with a thumbs up when you're ready to do this third guy. But while I'm waiting, I'll talk to you about what's going to come next. After we do this third flower, we may touch up some leaves a little bit, maybe. I feel like I want this leaf down here to be a little bit darker. And then, yes ma'am, you do Maria, we do this top blossom in the exact same way. So if you guys are ready, you can go on without me and I'll catch up to you. So we're going to re-look at all the leaves, see if we need any adjustments. We're going to look for any little white holes that maybe are bothering you, and then we're going to do splashing. If you're afraid of splashing, you don't have to do it, but I want to show you how to do it because it kind of adds to the painting. So I'm seeing thumbs up, so let me go ahead onto that third one up here at the top. Remember, you're going to do clear water, just sort of in a half circle. Give it a curve, leaving the top dry. I'm liking the blue, so I'm going to do a blue on this one again. So after you wet it, remember you blot it. Do you need the Kleenex? You know that's cancer causing. Studio guest is doing funny things with the paint. Can I say? He painted a blue mustache on himself. And so I had to, of course, say, well, you'll be fine. Okay, so you wet it, you blot it a little bit, and then with your paint, where's the color I like? There it is. You're coming in and you're doing those little blossom shapes. This is a good time if you need to fill in any gaps. You might as well do it with this. So here I had a white gap, so I'm going to just sort of paint it in as I do these little shapes. You can see they got a little bit looser. At the beginning I was trying harder to make those four petal blossom shapes, and now I'm just adding color in there. Okay, then I have to let that sit, and don't mess with that for a second, but I'm going to still have some blue on my brush, and I'll use my brush sideways up here at the top and kind of stamp in a little bit. Still leaving that highlight at the top. I like this, all right, not bad for a 90-minute painting. I'm going to fill in this gap over here. Where's my paint? Here's the one. Is this it? That's not it. This one. There's a little gap right in here. I'm going to fill that in. Sorry people, I'm getting my hair in the painting a lot tonight. I must be trying to lean over close to the paper. Jillian, this is satisfying to you? That's good to hear. And then before these guys dry too much, remember you have a clean, damp brush, and you're just kind of blotting those just a little bit to soften up some of those shapes. And then you have a hydrangea. You have 3 hydrangeas. I'm going to use my heat gun real quick to dry this out while you guys are finishing your flower. All right. Lena wants to know if she can see your mustache.
It's not there anymore.
He wiped it off, Lena. Sorry, Lena. Maybe another day. Maybe you could come and visit and he'll do another one. She's my friend. My friend in Carmichael. Okay. Since we're at the end here, I'm going to do a couple of things that you can either do with me or you can do on your own later. One of them is this leaf right here. It is pretty dull to me. It's not having an exciting look, so I'm going to change it up by getting some more paint on it the paper is dry, and this is about the first time you're going to see me paint on dry paper tonight, because if you remember, everything we did was wet at first. So if you need to ever paint with dry paint, you just come in, lay your paint on there, and we're going to need it to blend with the rest of the leaf. So if you have this paint on dry paper up there, then you rinse your brush and let your brush touch up against that wet paint that you just laid down and drag it down onto the rest of the leaf, and that's how you get a blend. Sometimes you have to re-wet your brush or maybe touch in a little extra paint in there, but if you drag it down across the rest of the leaf, you can get a blend. You can even tip your paper maybe to let gravity pull it down a little bit. I wanted to have a little bit more darkness on that leaf right there, so that's what that was about. And since I'm doing that, I'll do one other leaf. I'll do this guy up here, just part of it maybe. Maybe this one too. So I give a little bit of darkness on these lower sides. So I did it on dry paper, rinse out the brush after, and with a damp brush, just pull it around onto the rest of the leaf, so that you don't want to have that hard line of that new paint on there. You want it to soften. My teacher of many years always used to say feather it. It's like it's blending it. So those of you out there who wear face makeup, you're blending that makeup around. If you are a let's see, what do we do in the car world? What would you guys say? If you have grease on your face but you don't want it to look like a blob of grease, use your thumb and you spread it around on your face so that it blends. How about that? That was stupid, huh? Sorry. Okay. The last thing is going to be the splatter. So let me fix this leaf real quick and dry it, and we're going to splatter. If you're afraid of splattering, you don't have to do it. You can watch, or you can even try it on a piece of sample paper. Like even if you just have printer paper at home, you can try it on that and see what happens. So let me dry for a second and I'll show you. Okay, as a reminder, this is what it looks like in the sample that I did, and you can see that there's a lot of splatter up in here. Whenever you're splattering, you want to always have a Kleenex handy in case you splatter too much. You want to be able to blot it away. So the trick to splattering, I'm using the colors that are in the flowers here. So the trick is to ahead of time have, just like we did with everything else, have paint ready to go. So here is Phthalo Blue, and I'm having some right here ready. And let's see, I'm going to do a little bit of that pink, which is on a different palette, so I have to hold this one over here. I want it to be kind of juicy. Let it be like coffee or tea, not too thick. This right here is a little bit too thick. So I just add a little water to it. I need it to have a nice flow to it, so you can see it kind of moves around and swims around there. So with your brush, I'm using a number 6 round. You can always mask off or cover an area of the painting if something you want to protect and you don't want to get any splatter on there. You can lay a paper towel over it and protect it, but I don't care about that right now, so I'm going to flick the whole thing. The action or the movement to do this is like this. So here's a dry brush just to show you. I usually hold it like this, overhanded, and then I'm going to do a downward motion like that, but also tap with my fingers. Think about salt, like maybe you're shaking salt or tapping salt on. Okay, it does tend to get everywhere. So if you have something precious on the table, you could move it, like another painting, you want to get it out of the way or watch out for your clothes. But it looks like this. Here we go. Okay. And I'll do the other color. Did you not like what you got? Have a Kleenex ready. If you don't like what you got, you can blot it. Do you need a Kleenex? No. Okay. All right, here comes the blue. Let's see, I want a little more here. Need some more water. Okay, so that's quite a lot of splatter on here. If you catch it while it's still wet, you can lift up a lot of this color. Let's say right here I have quite a large blob. I'll go a little closer to the camera so you can see it. If you get a blob that's too big and you don't like it, just suck it up with your Kleenex real quick. It's also nice, here's where I dripped and I had a mistake. So I can try to be strategic and cover that with a splatter, because this is green, and if I'm lucky, maybe, there we go. That was pretty okay. I can cover up a previous mistake, and if this is too big, I'll just blot it a little bit. Kind of disguise that. And that is our painting. Look at that, people. Maybe you're not done, but I'm going to leave this up for you for a minute, but I want to say a proper thank you and goodbye to you. So I'm going to change up the camera real quick so I can say goodbye. And then I'll put it back down on the table again so that you can take a few minutes on your own after I leave to look at what's happening on the table. So we're going to shrink this. Will it work for me? There we go. Look away if you get dizzy. Here's the studio guest. There he is right there. Hey. Do you want to wave again? Okay, sorry people. Got you kind of dizzy maybe. And let's flip it around to me. All right. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for coming. It was really good having you, and I'm glad that we finally got through a painting in the amount of time that we needed to get through. Don't forget, if there was something that you missed, you can probably find it on my website, which is sacramentoartclasses.com. Our next class is on May 28th, probably going to be elephants. And I have 2 new classes starting on Zoom next month in May. So a Wednesday night watercolor or a Thursday night acrylic, and all that stuff is on the website for you. So I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciate you coming, and thank you. And don't forget, if you have a question, put it in that text, and since I didn't see it tonight, or if I'm not seeing it tonight, I'll answer it for you over the weekend. So thank you. I really appreciate you coming. And now I'm going to put it back onto the table here for you. So if you need a last look, you'll be able to do that. And have a great night. I forgot to tell you what I'm having for dinner, and the answer is I don't know. So you guys all shared your snacks with me, but I have no idea what I'm eating. Usually we end with me saying whatever I'm eating, and I don't know what it is. So anyway, okay, bye. Let's put this back for you to look back on the table. Thank you. All right, let's get that for you. Here's the other one. Move this. Whoops. See, there it is again. Use up all the space that I have and then some. Here's this. Everything is there. Can you see everything that you need to see? I'm putting up my tip jar thing because some people like to leave a tip. It's not necessary or expected. It's always appreciated, but there it is if you want it. Okay. All right. I'll leave this up for a couple minutes. Oh, a few questions here. When you post painting picture, can you tell up what you what? Oh, yes, Karen. I will put my dinner once I post my finished painting. I will also tell you what I had for dinner. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Cindy.